So when you work with React or any other single page applications such as maybe Vue or Angular, it's very common to split everything in tiny pieces. This is very common. And if you come from maybe WordPress or the PHP world, you're gonna know that you split everything in tiny parts of code. So we're gonna do the same thing right here. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is gonna be about project structure. We're going to build on this React Basics section. We're going to build a tiny application. It's going to be a news application. And we're going to have a header where we can filter some news. And inside a different component, we can have some news, of course. So first, we need to talk about the structure of this. So I'm going to bring here, we can have our application. And the first component is going to be the parent component. So we always going to get a parent component that is going to enclose all the other code, all the other components. So the first component is going to be the header. So the header is going to contain the logo, and then we're going to add some an input text so we can filter some of the news we get at home. Then we're going to have a different component, which is going to be the news component. This one is going to hold some other components that are going to be the actual news. And now inside, we can have each news. Now we're going to use one component for all the news items that we get at home. Now this news item is going to dynamically feed the information about that news to the news component. So to sum everything up, we can have 4 different components. We have the parent component, we have the header component, that's 2, we get the news component, that's 3, and then the news item. We have 4 components. Now, why are we talking about this? Why am I just telling you what we're going to do? Well, I'm not making this up, but this is the first thing that you're going to need to do whenever you start a new project. You need to stop for 5 minutes before you start coding and think about your project structure. And again, I'm not making this up. You're going to do it because you need to think, what are you going to use and how you're going to structure. If you start coding and you make something that it's maybe not right, you're gonna go back to your code and start splitting everything again. And of course, this is if you work as a freelancer, you're going to be doing it. And if you work in a company, the first reunion, the first meetup that you're going to do with maybe other developers is going to be about the project structure. Not about your payment, not about the time that it's going to take you. It's going to be the project structure. Good. Okay, let's keep moving forward and start with the new component, the first component, which is going to be the header. So let's create the structure for this. I'm going to go right here to the directory. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to go to source. Now, whenever we work with this kind of applications, you need to have a folder that contains all your components. And you can call this components. I saw some people, I know some people that use views or maybe includes or templates. Components and views are the most popular ones. So I'm going to go to source and I'm going to create a new folder that says components. Just like that. And now we're going to have 3 different components. The parent one is going to be index.js, and inside here, we're going to have a header component. It's going to be header.js. We're going to have a news item that is going to hold all the news. So we're going to say news underscore and list, and you can name these files whatever you want. This is actually up to you. I'm going to create a new file that is going to be news underscore list underscore item.js. Everything is JS, of course. Okay, let me make this a little bit smaller. There we go. I'm going to close this one, and then for now, I'm just going to close all the components. So the first component that we need to create is going to be the header component. So first, I'm going to just delete this just like this. And of course, right here, we're going to have a header, and we're going to do it right now in a minute. We're going to say div. And right here, we're gonna have the header. Remember that whenever we return something, we need to return everything wrapped inside one element. So right here, we're gonna have a header, of course, just really simple. And if we go, we get the header. That's good. So now let's create the component for this. Now, again, whenever you work with React, since you're going to be using JSX and React code, you need to import React from React. The same thing we did right here. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to say import React, just like that, with capital R from React. If you don't do this and you want to use some React code, it's not going to work. You're going to get an error message. And that's it. For now, you're not going to be using the other one, the React DOM. The React DOM is just to render something on the root. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to create the component and include it right here. So we're going to create a component. It's going to be const, just like we did with the other one. This one is going to be called header. And it's going to be equal to just a function that is going to return some code. So I'm going to say return, and we're going to return a div that says header. Real simple. Then, of course, we're going to be changing this. Okay, so now we have our component. Now, we need a way to connect all the components. Right now we have two, the index, which is the parent one, and the header. So we need to tie them together. Now, unless we connect them manually, they are not related. So to connect things, to connect components with other components, we need to make them available for other components. So I'm going to go right here at the bottom, and we're going to say export, then default, and then the name of the component that we want to share with other components. So since our component calls header, we're going to say header. So now this component is going to be available from other pieces of code. Now I'm going to save this one, and we're going to need to include that component, the header component, inside here, inside the main component. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to just add a comment that's going to say components. So right here, we're going to have a list of all the components that we need to include inside the main one, the parent one. Good. So now, how do we import code? We're going to say import, just like we did before, import. And then we need to put the name of what we want to import. In this case, it's going to be the header. So I'm going to say header. Now we say from, and now instead of doing header, just like we did right here, since this is not a node module, it's just one component from our application, we need to specify the path. I'm going to say dot, then / and access the components folder, / and bring the header. Now, since header, it's already a JavaScript file, there's no need to put the extension. If you work with CSS, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute, we need to use the extension. But that's good. So I'm going to save the application and check it right here. So we're going to get header is defined but never used. So it's whenever you have some code right here that you're not really using, it's going to give you a warning. So it's considered bad coding having components that you're not really using. Okay. So now how do we use this header component that we are importing from here? So what we can do, if I just copy this, and it's happening right now, and I paste it, and since this is a variable, it's not going to do anything. It's just outputting a text because we are just using some text. So just like we did before, whenever we render the app, we need a way to tell React that this component, it's an actual component that we are importing. So we need to enclose everything just like this. So now React knows that whenever it needs to render this, it's going to check, oh, this one has tag, so this could be a component. Let me check. Yeah, it is a component because we are importing it right here. So if we save it, we get header. Just to make sure that we get something else, we're going to say, this is my new header. And if I save it, we get this is my new header. So now we are exporting this component and we are just importing it right here and including the component inside the parent component. That's good. You know, it's working. We're going to, of course, make a lot of changes right here to the header. But for now, I want to talk about something else. So let's move forward to the next section.